Interstellar travel could make human language evolve beyond recognition, a new study says. It's a captivating idea. Build an interstellar ark, fill it with people, flora, and fauna of every kind, and set your course for a distant star. The concept is not only science fiction gold, it's been the subject of many scientific studies and proposals. By building a ship that can accommodate multiple generations of human beings, aka a generation ship, humans could colonize the known universe. But of course, there are downsides to this imaginative proposal. During such a long voyage, multiple generations of people will be born and raised inside a closed environment, and this could lead to all kinds of biological issues or mutations that we simply can't foresee. But according to a new study by a team of linguist professors, there's something else that will be subject to mutation during such a voyage, and that is language itself. This study, Language Development During Interstellar Travel, appeared in the April issue of Acta Futura, Journal of European Space Agency's Advanced Concepts team. The team consisted of Andrew Mackenzie, an associate professor of linguistics at the University of Kansas, and Jeffrey Punsk, assistant professor of linguistics at Southern Illinois University. In the study, Mackenzie and Punsk discussed how languages evolve over time whenever communities grow isolated from one another. This would certainly be the case in the event of a long interstellar voyage and/or as a result of interplanetary colonization. Eventually, this could mean that the language of the colonists would be unintelligible for the people of Earth should they meet up again later. For those who took English as a senior or college level, the story of Caxton's Eggies out to be a familiar one. In the preface of his 1490 translation of Virgil's Aeneid, into Middle English, he tells a story of a group of merchants who are traveling down the Thames towards Holland. Due to poor winds, they're forced to dock in the country of Kent, just 50 miles downriver, and look for something to eat. Quote, and one of them, named Sheffield, a merchant, came into a house and asked for meat, and specifically he asked for eggs, eggies. And the good wife answered that she could speak no French, and the merchant got angry, for he could speak no French either, but he wanted eggs, and she could not understand him. And then at last another person said that he wanted ayran. Then the good woman said that she understood him well. This story illustrates how people in the 15th century England could travel within the same country and experience a language barrier. Well, multiply that by 4.25 light years to the nearest star, and you can begin to see how language could be a major complication when it comes to interstellar travel. To illustrate, Mackenzie and Punsk use examples of different language families on Earth and how new languages emerged due to distance and time. Then they extrapolated how this same process would occur over the course of 10 generations or more of interplanetary travel. As Mackenzie explained in a UK press release, he said, if you're on this vessel for 10 generations, new concepts will emerge, new social issues will come up, and people will create ways of talking about them, and these will become the vocabulary particular to the ship. People on Earth might never know about these words unless there's a reason to tell them, and the further away you get, the less you're going to talk to people back home. Generations pass, and there's no one really back home to talk to, and there's not much you want to tell them because they'll only find out years later, and then you'll hear back from them years after that, end quote. An example they use is the case of Polynesian sailors who populated the South Pacific Islands between 3000 and 1000 BC. Though the roots of these sailors are traced to Taiwan, about 6000 BC, this process of expansion led to the development of entirely new cultures by the first millennium BC. The Polynesian languages that emerged bore little resemblance to the ancient Austronesia language, aka Formosan, of their ancestors. Similarly, the authors cite language changes that take place within the same language community over time, using the example of uptalk, also known as high-rising terminal. This phenomenon involves statements ending with a rise in intonation. While it's often mistaken for a question by those who are unfamiliar with it, the convention is actually intended to indicate politeness or inclusion. As the authors note, uptalk has only been observed in the English language the past 40 years, and its origins are unclear. Nevertheless, the spread of it has been noted, particularly by members of the baby boomer generation that use it today and did not in their youth. Another issue they identify is sign language, which will require adaptation from the crew since some crew members will be born hearing impaired. Without someone keeping track of changes and trying to maintain grammatical standards, linguistic divergence will be inevitable. But as they note, that might be irrelevant since the language on Earth is going to change during the same time. So they may well be communicating like we'd be using Latin, communicating with this version of the language nobody uses, said Mackenzie. Last but not least, they address what will happen when subsequent ships from Earth reach the colonized planets and meet the locals. Without some means of preparation, like communication with the colony before they reach it, new waves of immigrants will encounter a language barrier and could find themselves being discriminated against. Because of this, they recommend that any future interplanetary or interstellar missions include linguists or people who are trained in what to expect. Translation software ain't gonna cut it. They further recommend that additional studies of likely language changes aboard interstellar spacecraft be conducted so people know what to expect in advance, or as they conclude in their study, given the certainty that these issues will arise in scenarios such as these, and the uncertainty of exactly how they will progress, we strongly suggest that any crew exhibit strong levels of metalinguistic training in addition to simply knowing the required languages. There will be a need for informed linguistic policy on board that can be maintained without referring back to the Earth-based regulations, end quote. Just for fun, let's see what kinds of linguistic changes could take place. For starters, let's assume that a generation ship does not take a full 10 generations to reach its destinations. In this case, Proxima B, 10 more generations pass before the next ship arrives, bringing people from Earth who will still speak modern English. Using the language evolution simulator onset and an English IPA translator, we can get a small taste of how a simple English language greeting and a common request if you're in a 50s sci-fi B-movie would change over 20 generations. Haluha Fred, gut tu, biyatu, tuk bi, tu o ul le eru playas. And you could say, hello friend, good to meet you, take me to your leader, please, comes out a little different after 20 generations of separation. Playas is please. Now, how about something more complicated but not less familiar? Here's a famous speech that fans of space exploration and history should recognize. After 20 years of interstellar travel, here's what that speech would sound like. Okay, I'm going to try this. We choose to go to Bood. We choose to go to Bood id twees deik udu they de attertig. This is too ridiculous. Anyway, can you guess what the speech is? Keep in mind, it's just a basic simulation of how the English language might change for a group of colonists, never mind people here on Earth. And when you take the time to consider all of the spoken language and dialects spoken today, and that any combination of these will be brought with the colonists to the stars, you can see how confounding it all could be. There's a reason why the myth of the Tower of Babel remains embedded in our collective conscience. Language barriers have always been a hurdle for human interaction, especially where long stretches of time and space are concerned. So if humanity plans to go interstellar or interplanetary, we'll be taking that hurdle to a whole new level. In the meantime, you can check out several other articles we've done on the subject of generation ships and how big would they have to be and the minimum number of crew they would need. And this article originally published on Universe Today. It's on Science Alert by Matt Williams, Universe Today. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.